boys and girls. Well, we learned that one of the symbols of Maryland is the state flower, and we learned that the state flower is the black-eyed Susan. Black-eyed Susan is a flower, and it's also a plant. So we're going to be reading a book about plants. And I can see on the cover of this book that there are many different plants. And I see a lot of flowers on here. So let's read our book about plants and see what kind of information we can take in, which will help us with our assignment down below. Now, this book is written and illustrated by Terry Jennings. Here's our title page, and it's also got wildlife watches because plants are part of wildlife. When you go outside, do you see little daisies and dandelions all through your grass? Yeah. Well, part of this is very important, this cycle here. This is the first bee food when the bees emerge from hibernation after a long winter. So if you can avoid it, try not to mow too much of our daisies and dandelions because they're the bees' first food, and we need the bees so we can get food. So take care of our bees, my friends. Table of contents, very important because it will show me where I can find the information in the book as we go through. What is a flower? Most plants have flowers. They come in many shapes and sizes. Some smell like beautiful perfume, but some smell terrible. All flowers have the same job. They make seeds so that new plants can grow. The parts of a flower. Most flowers have parts. They have a stamen, they have petals, and they have a stem, and they have sepals. Many flowers are brightly colored to attract insects and other animals to them. These animals are important because they carry pollen from one flower to another. The importance of insects. A plant's egg cells are usually fertilized by pollen from another plant of the same kind. Many flowers produce a sweet juice called nectar to attract animal pollen carriers. When an animal pushes into the flower to feed, pollen grains from the stamen sticks to its body. On its visit to the next flower, some pollen may rub off onto the stigma. This is called pollination. A tiny tube grows down from the pollen grain into one of the egg cells, and the egg cell starts to grow into a seed. This is called fertilization. And here's our bee covered with pollen on its back legs that it will take to another flower, and then it will pollinate it, which will fertilize it, and we'll get new seeds. Not all flowers are pollinated by insects or other animals. The wind spreads pollen between certain flowers, particularly those of grasses and many trees. These flowers are usually dull green, and most do not have petals. They do not produce nectar or scent because they do not need to attract bees and other insects. So when you see this, it is actually part of a flower. And same with this one here. It's just that some trees do not need to grow beautiful flowers, just functional flowers. So when I'm functional, I just have a job to do. Be a plant spotter. Some parts of plants are small, so you need to get close to see all the details. One way is to collect them. Another way is to use a magnifying glass. The most important equipment you need is your eyes, your ojos. Be prepared though. Warning: it is against the law to collect wild seeds, plants, or flowers without permission of the owner of the land. So make sure you always get permission if you're going to be collecting plants off land that is not yours. And here is what a plant spotter would need: tweezers, a bag to collect things in, a magnifying glass, and a notebook to be able to draw. So keep that in mind, friends. Weed winners. A weed is a plant that grows where it is not wanted. Weeds can grow so quickly that they flower and produce new seeds before you even notice them. Some weeds have bright, colorful flowers. So if you see a field poppy, or a meadow buttercup, or a rose bay willow herb, these are actually considered weeds, especially anything that grows where you don't want it to. Spotting weeds. Many weeds have a very short life cycle, from seeds to flowers and back to seeds again. Weeds produce a lot of seeds. Some of these seeds may stay hidden in the soil for many years until the conditions are just right for them to grow. Some weeds have more than one way of surviving and spreading themselves. For example, if a dandelion plant is removed, some of its long root stays in the soil. That piece of root will grow into a new plant. Oh no, I thought I moved those dandelions. Composite flowers. Some kinds of flowers, such as daisies, are actually made up of hundreds of small flowers. The small flowers form a flower head that looks like a single flower. Only the outer flowers have a single large petal. Spotting composite flowers. Some flowers, such as daisies, can open and close their flowers. As the sun sets, the flowers close up tightly. When the sun rises the next morning, the flowers slowly open. A dandelion flower head contains 200 tiny flowers. They close up at night or in bad weather. The spear thistle is one of the best protected plants. Each leaf ends in a spine. Ouch, be careful. So all of these flowers are actually made up of teeny tiny flowers. Storing food. Some plants have special leaves or stems that are used to store food for winter. Then they will have plenty of food for when they start to grow again in the spring. Some of these plants can make new copies of themselves without producing seeds. Wow, it's almost like having a photocopier or a copy machine that can just, bloop, oh, made a copy, bloop, made a copy. Spotting food storing plants. A daffodil flower grows from a bulb. This is made up of fleshy leaves that are full of food, which is used by the growing shoot. A crocus grows from a corm. This is a round stem full of stored food. A potato is a swollen part of an underground stem, which will grow into a new plant if it is planted. So just think, when you are eating a potato, you're eating a stored plant. Wonder if that means I can grow my own potatoes in my belly. I'll never be hungry again. So we have daffodils, a crocus, and a flag iris. They don't grow seeds. They have stored food in either their stem or their leaves or their bulbs under the ground. Pretty clever. Climbing plants. Plants need sunlight to make their food. Most plants grow upwards to get as much sunlight as possible. Climbing plants with weak stems cannot grow upward on their own. They use other plants for support. Have you ever seen ivy and how it creeps up a wall and then the wall is covered with ivy? It can make a wall seem very pretty, but that is a plant climbing up to get more sun and using the wall for support. Very smart. Good way to solve a problem. Spotting climbing plants. Ivy has tiny roots growing from its stems. These help it to scramble up a tree, a fence, or a wall. Honeysuckle climbs by winding itself around young trees. Sometimes it squashes the trunk of the tree and makes it look like a corkscrew. The long, tough stems of brambles are armed with hooked prickles. Ouch! So we've got ivy, we've got honeysuckle, and a boysenberry bramble. I like boysenberries. Water plants. All plants need water so they can feed and grow. Water plants grow in places such as ponds, lakes, ditches, and swamps, landforms. Some plants live in or even under the water, while others float on the water's surface. Spotting water plants. Plants such as flag irises grow in shallow water at the edge of the pond, rivers, and streams. They have long, strong roots to fix them firmly in the mud. Yeah, you need those roots to help keep you in one place. Plants such as water lilies and water crowfoot grow partially covered by water. These plants often have thin and bendy stems so they can move with the water. If they couldn't move and they were rigid, they might snap. So sometimes it pays to be flexible, just like when we're flexible with our friends. The stems of some water plants have spaces for air in them. This helps hold the plants up in the water. So we have a white water lily, a water crowfoot, and bladderwort. Those are all water plants. Vital grasses. Grasses are probably the most important plant in the whole world. They provide food for animals, and many of the foods we eat come from grass too. Like when you eat bread, you're eating wheat, unless you're eating gluten-free. And that is a grass. And so is barley and oats. They come from grasses too. So when you're having oatmeal, you're eating from a grass. I wonder if that makes me a cow. Spotting grasses. Although they are usually dull and green, grasses do have flowers. Grass flowers do not have petals or bright colors because they are pollinated by the wind. Grass species include wheat, oats, barley, rice, and maize, which are made into food such as breakfast cereals and bread. Grasses are food for many wild animals. In some places, such as the UK, that's the United Kingdom, straw or reeds are used to make the roofs of houses. Cool. So I could have a house made of grass. Very useful. I could have it for shelter. Trees. A tree is a large woody plant. Trees grow tall and the branches grow long. At the same time, the roots go deep. So for as tall as a tree is, its roots are either long or deep to match how tall it is to help keep it centered on the earth so that the wind isn't the force that pushes it over. The tree trunk gets fatter each year as the new layer of wood grows just beneath the bark. Spotting trees. Many trees shed their leaves each fall. They are called deciduous trees. Not all trees shed their leaves at once. If they don't, they are called evergreens. That's like a Christmas tree. There are about 100,000 different species of tree in the world. Trees such as plum and apple trees have bright flowers that are pollinated by insects. However, most trees such as oak, ash, and maple have flowers that are dull and green because they're pollinated by Yep, you guessed it. The wind. Wow, that wind sure is useful. Here we have an oak, a common beech, and a pine tree. I love the way that a pine tree smells and the pine cones in the winter. Nice and woody. Strange habits. A few plants have strange feeding habits. Some trap and eat small animals, while some steal food from other plants. There are even plants with flowers that are disguised as something else. Spotting strange habits. Some plants need more than sunlight, water, and soil. They have to eat meat as well. Don't get too close. The Venus flytrap has deadly leaves which help trap insects. Some orchids pretend to be flies, bees, or wasps to attract insects to pollinate them. Mistletoe sinks its special roots into the branches of a tree to steal its food. That mistletoe is pretty tricky. You may not find many strange plants growing in the wild, but they can often be found at garden centers. Wow. Plants fight back. Do, 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 do. The leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds of plants are often eaten by animals. Yeah, we gotta eat sometime. Some plants have special ways of protecting themselves. Spotting plant defenders. Dun, 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 dun. A large number of plants, including cactus, teasel, thistles, holly, and brambles, use spines or thorns to protect themselves. A stinging nettle, ouch! Stems and leaves are covered in tiny needle-like hairs. Below each hair is a tiny bag of poison. If you brush against the nettle plant, the poison is squeezed into your skin and causes a sting. Ouch! Some plants, such as foxglove and ragwort, are poisonous to grazing animals. If an animal eats part of this plant, it will be sick. Blech! Ugh. Watch out for those ones. So we've got holly, stinging nettles, and foxglove. Whoa, good defending. It's almost like being a superhero. Plants in danger. Oh no! Although plants seem to be almost everywhere, many kinds are in danger of dying out altogether. This is called extinction, kind of like the dinosaurs. Plants face extinction because of things that humans do. Oh man, I gotta watch out what I do. Every kind of plant lives in a particular surrounding. This is its habitat. All over the world, habitats are being destroyed. Soil is being covered over with concrete, tarmac, and buildings. When their habitats are destroyed, the plants will have nowhere to grow. So we need to protect those habitats for plants just as much as we protect habitats for animals. It all works together to make our whole world. We need to share, because sharing is caring. And then here is our glossary. All right, my friends, you got a lot of information about a lot of different kinds of plants. So scroll on down below and see what is your assignment for today.